Lucky you. Here we go. ESPN Radio's Jorge Sedano with Armen and Levack on 104.5 The Team. You can hear the Sedano Show weeknights 7 to 9 right here on your home for New York sports. 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. George, if the NBA Finals were to end right now, who is the MVP of the Finals right now? Who should get the award with what we know at this moment?
Man, it's crazy. I'd probably go with LeBron. But I think Steph Curry has crept into the conversation. I mean, everyone's talking about how Steph Curry's had this bad series. And if you really look at it, he's only had one bad game. So he's averaging 26 points, 6 assists a game, and he's shooting 41% from three. That's really good last time I checked. So he should be at least in the conversation. And I think this starts to become about what you believe in, like where you lie on these kind of things. Like, should a guy on a losing team win the MVP? And you can make this case for MVPs in the regular season, too. A lot of people didn't like that A-Rod won an MVP with the Texas Rangers when they were a last-place team. So it's kind of that similar type of concept. I'm only rooting for LeBron for this reason, because I think it would be some of the best, most awkward television ever if the Warriors win tonight. And then he's got to come out and accept that trophy in front of his fans who won't be there for the most part, right? Because they'll all be gone because they'll be upset. And that just would make for great television. I always root for chaos and anarchy and awkwardness, and I think that would provide it for sure.
George, is the biggest enemy for one of the Warriors winning the MVP the fact that they're just such a balanced team?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think there's any question. And you look at what Andre Iguodala has done during this postseason, and specifically during these finals, he's done so many things that just are immeasurable in a regular box score. So unless you're going and looking to see what LeBron shoots against Andre Iguodala, which isn't very good, I may add, then you're not really going to notice his impact. You're just going to look at the couple of games where he had, 16 or 22 or whatever it was, and you say, he did okay. But yes, the balance is a problem, I think, for them when trying to choose an MVP. And you've had that with some other teams in the past, too. Like the Spurs, obviously, are a team that are pretty balanced. And so you've had those issues, whether it was Kawhi winning it one time, Parker has won it before, obviously Duncan has won it before. So there's certainly other teams that have been in that same conundrum.
Jorge Sedano of ESPN Radio with Armen and Levack, and you're ready for NBA Finals Game 6 tonight in Cleveland. And, George, you mentioned that when Iguodala's on LeBron's not very successful, and that's interesting because Levack and I have had this debate all week. My thing is you're going to give this MVP award to a guy that LeBron is still hanging 30-plus in every single game.
But that's what you do with great scorers. It's not about what their total is. It's about how they got there. Shane Battier, to me, is one of the greatest defenders of all time. Raja Bell, another guy who's one of the better defenders of that generation. And both guys have always told me, look, when I played against Kobe or LeBron or T-Mac in his prime, if he was going to go for 30, 35 most nights anyway. But if I could get him to do it on 30 or 35 shots, then I won that night because you want him to be the least efficient as possible.
All right, so if Cleveland is going to win tonight, I think it's fairly obvious LeBron can't do it all himself. Who's the guy you think could possibly step up and help him?
God, that's a great question. I mean, last game I tweeted this out because I thought it was going to be the case, and I guess I was right to a certain extent. I said that it's going to be the JR game for better or worse, and it started off in typical JR fashion, started off like, oh, my God, here comes JR finally. And then I think he went 4 of 14 the rest of the way. So it was kind of both sides of J.R. Smith. Honestly, it's going to have to be a wing player because we've seen it when Mozgov has had a big game or even Tristan Thompson has had a big game that it hasn't had as much of an effect. So it needs to be a wing player, and really the most likely candidate there would be J.R. Smith.
Jorge Sedano with Armen and Levack on Twitter at Sedano ESPN. George, how important is monitoring the minutes of Mozgov? Because David Blatt, obviously 2 games ago, gives him a lot of minutes, and the last game, not so much. How much is that a factor tonight?
I don't know if it's a huge factor. Look, we could sit here and debate whether they were in the game or not in the game with Mozgov in the last 2 games. And at the end of the day, they got blown out, right? Like, they lost by 21 or whatever it was the previous game, and then last game they lost by 15 or whatever it was. But they were in the game late in both those games. With, about halfway through the fourth quarter, they were in those games. So I just think that ultimately it doesn't really matter. Like, they've got they don't have enough bullets in the chamber at this point. Like, David Blatt has no more moves. And Steve Kerr, interestingly enough, has at least a couple of more. Like, it's checkmate at this point as far as I'm concerned. And there's really nothing that Blatt could do with or without Mozgov that's going to change that.
Then how do you grade David Blatt in the NBA Finals?
I think if I'm going to be critical of Blatt, it's going to be during the regular season, where I think it also impacted this series. For example, Mike Miller and Sean Marion are a year removed from being a guy, in Miller's case, who played, 80 games or whatever it was, from Memphis, who made the postseason and had a decent run. And, Mike Miller was still Mike Miller last year. And, yeah, he had a rough start this season, but I think that they didn't do a good enough job of letting him shoot through that and play through that. And same thing with Sean Marion. He got some starts early in the year, like Blatt was playing 10, 11 guys. And then all of a sudden, when LeBron came back from that 2-week hiatus, he started treating the regular season as if it was the postseason and shrinking his rotation for the next several months. And I think that became a problem. I think what happens is you shrink those guys out of the rotation for so long that by the time you try to, break the glass in case of emergency when you need them in the postseason, there's really nothing there. There's no trust. There's a lot of rust potentially with those guys, even as professional as those guys are, and trying to stay ready. And I think that is probably where I would criticize him the most, is his rotations from January on basically have led him to this position where he didn't cultivate enough guys off that bench in case they needed somebody at the last minute, and I think that plays a role in it. I don't think enough people are talking about that.
So because he did not cultivate Sean Marion and Mike Miller earlier in the year, that's part of the reason why he's not playing them now?
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. And then what happens is when you start to try to play them now, they're not in rhythm. They're not used to playing with the guys that are out there. And, you're asking them to do something that they haven't been asked to do in God knows how long. You're talking about months now at this point. 6-7 months was the last time those guys got decent rotation minutes. So I think that becomes a problem at this stage.
Any chance Blatt's not back next year?
Oh, I think there's absolutely a chance he's not back next year. I think this offseason is going to be really crazy for that team because LeBron has an opt-out, and all he's got to do is just go on radio silence, man. Like, he opts out and just says nothing and goes into, like, a cave somewhere, and all of a sudden everybody in Cleveland is going to freak out. And that means that Griffin and Dan Gilbert are going to have to make certain decisions based off what LeBron wants, whether that's David Blatt, whether that's Kevin Love. All that stuff is going to be told to us by the way LeBron goes silent. And I think that's going to be the way he does it. I think that's the way he's done it in years past. When he left Cleveland the first time, he was, he had those meetings, but he was pretty silent for the most part. This past offseason, we left Miami. Pat Riley was texting him, all day, every day, and he went silent on him and eventually gave him a cursory meeting. But, yeah, that's just the way he does business. So I feel like this will probably be the same this offseason.
Jorge Sedano of ESPN Radio, heard right here on 104.5 The Team and the ESPN Radio app. The Sedano Show, 7 to 9 weeknights at Sedano ESPN on Twitter. George, should we have a problem with the amount of times that LeBron has said, it's me, I'm the best player in the world? Should we have a problem with that?
No, I mean, he's really just said it the one time here recently. And honestly, he probably should have said it years ago. What I think is interesting is for all the talk about LeBron and using that phrase, had he said that a year or two ago, I think he would have been excoriated. Like, I think that he would have absolutely been torched in the media because what he has is he's bought himself, he's bought himself the benefit of the doubt, and he's bought himself some love because in life we love storybook endings, right? We don't like rooting for the villain. And when he was with Miami, he was the villain. That's just the way it was. Nobody liked the way he left. All the stuff about the stupid TV show, those guys, coming together. Nobody liked that for the most part. And what happened is now he goes back to Cleveland, the city that hasn't won in 50 years, and it becomes more of a storybook type thing, and it fits nice and neatly in a narrative. So people start to like him, and they give him the benefit of the doubt more in that spot.
Hey, Steph Curry tonight, how much is his legacy on the line? I mean, you had mentioned that he hasn't played that bad in the NBA Finals. He's been pretty good in the NBA Finals. How important is this game tonight for his legacy?
I mean, look, I think his legacy has still got a long way to go. But, yeah you got to win the first one, right? Like, that's kind of the way it is. He's 26 years old. If he wins here and he has another good game where he gives you 25, 26 points and he shoots a couple threes, I think that it just goes to add to what we've already been discussing with him, that this guy is arguably the best shooter in the history of the league already at age 26 because he does stuff off the dribble that not even guys like Ray Allen and Reggie Miller could do. And Ray, people forget Ray early in his career was capable of doing a lot on offense, but he's not just the guy that was just a spot-up shooter and a guy running off screens like he was the last several years. But I just think that what Curry can do is just incredible. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a guy like that that can shoot it from anywhere on the floor, like that you think, good Lord, if he picks up his dribble from 35 feet, I think it may go in. So I think that adds to his legacy, certainly. That's part of his legacy already, and if he adds championships, I think that will only cement his legacy even further. Like, I think this guy could be a Hall of Famer with just one ring, potentially. Though I do think that this unit, this core that Golden State has, and I said it on Mike and Mike at the time, and people were laughing at me, but I think that all you got to do is get the first one. Once you get the first one, and I know the West is hard, I could see these guys end up getting a couple of more, and they could end up being this generation's Spurs, where they can get 3, 4, 5 championships in a span of 15 years because their core is Steph Curry at 26 and, Draymond Green and Klay Thompson at 24. And there's a long way to go, I think, for those guys still. So you got to get that first one. And people forget that first one with San Antonio was basically Tim Duncan doing a lot of heavy lifting. David Robinson was still pretty good at that stage, giving him about 15 and 10. But a lot of role players on that team, Avery Johnson, Mario Elie, Sean Elliott, and then that eventually became Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili in the years after that. But I think they have a smart organization from top to bottom in the front office, the coaching staff, and obviously they got that young nucleus. I think this could end up being a really dynastic type team, and it obviously is all about Steph Curry at the center of it.
Now you mentioned how great the organization is. Steve Kerr now one win away from being the first rookie head coach to win the finals since Riley did it, I think, in '86 or so. How much credit does Steve Kerr get? How good is he as a head coach?
Oh, I think he's fantastic, man. But I think, we talk about him being a rookie head coach, but we forget that he was in the front office and that the Phoenix Suns were a team that got to the conference finals when he was an executive there. So I think that, even though he's never been an actual head coach, he was certainly really involved in what they were doing there in Phoenix, even as the general manager. So I think that kind of experience certainly helped him here. He's always been a very, just kind of mild-mannered guy, like easy to get along with, whether, it was as a player, as an executive, and certainly now as a coach. And you can just kind of see that. Like, his players really enjoy playing for him.
George, you're a Miami guy. Where's Dwayne Wade going next year? What's he going to do?
You know what? That's a great question. I don't think it's a slam dunk, no pun intended, that he comes back to Miami. And I think that there is a real potential divide there as to what Dwayne is worth moving forward. And look, we've seen this before in sports plenty of times. Do you pay a guy for past performance or do you pay him for future performance? And we saw Kobe get the past performance deal, right? We saw Derek Jeter get a past performance deal. Maybe there's a happy medium between the Miami Heat and Dwayne Wade on this deal. I know Dwayne allegedly wanted $60 million over 3 years. I could see them settling at 3 for $45 and everyone being okay with that moving forward because I think Dwayne still has something left in the tank. I just don't think he's the number one guy on your team anymore type of guy. Like, I think that he's a second or third guy on a championship team as opposed to a guy who can lead you at this point. And I think the Miami Heat feel that as well. So I think that becomes a problem. And really what Miami wants and Pat Riley wants is to have enough flexibility to be able to just get in a room with Kevin Durant after next season. Now, it may not happen, but people didn't think LeBron was going to Miami either. So Pat just wants to get in a room with him. And Pat is also going to monitor what's happening with Anthony Davis. There's talk about Anthony Davis may or may not stay in New Orleans. Tom Thibodeau apparently, according to reports, didn't want to interview for the New Orleans job because he didn't think Anthony Davis was going to stay there. He thought he was just going to do what Greg Monroe did this past season, who was the first guy to not extend his deal from his rookie contract with his current team. So, maybe Greg Monroe broke some ground there, and Anthony Davis may think, you know what, maybe I'll bet on myself. I'll sign the one-year tender and then go into unrestricted free agency in 17. So I think there's a lot of possibilities in Miami because it's always going to be a free agent destination because of the no state income tax, South Beach, and that organization. That organization has won 3 championships in the last 9 years, and I think that stuff stands out to people now,
All right, so here it is, the big question. Is there going to be confetti tonight, or are we going to have a Game 7?
No, I think there's confetti tonight. Look, man, I just think that the Cavs, the wheels are breaking off, and LeBron may end up going for 50 tonight, but I don't even know if that's going to be enough, to be quite honest with you. The Warriors have just hit their stride. Guys are hitting shots now. Everyone is comfortable with where they're at in this series. I think we're going to see a pretty good game. I don't think we're going to see a blowout necessarily, but I think that at the end of the day, we're seeing confetti in Cleveland, and unfortunately for the fans of Cleveland, it's not going to be for their team.
George Sedano, ESPN Radio, The Sedano Show, 7 to 9 every night on 104.5 The Team and the ESPN Radio app, at Sedano ESPN on Twitter. George, always fun, man. Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
You got it, boys. Anytime.